Hey, 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 you know what day it is. What day is it? It's Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. It's Tuesday tea with D. 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 Hey, boo, hey, it's your girl, Detra Trueheart, your life purpose generator, purpose provoker, and your personal life coach, here with another weekly dose of Tuesday Tea with D. And this week is another, I want to say it's another chin check, but I think it's going to be one that's going to actually make you dig a little bit deeper. And so, before we even jump into that, and we'll talk about what the topic is and all of that, let's talk about the tea. Right. And so I went back to a oldie book goodie. This is my green tea with pomegranate. Can y'all see that there? Look at that. Green tea with pomegranate. And so I feel like I had been giving my bagged teas. I had been treating them like a stepchild, honey, just kind of ignoring them. You know what I mean? And I was like, let's keep it simple this week. We're not going to make any tea because y'all know I have been on this ginger kick for a very long time, and I'm probably going to have some later on this week. But for today, we're doing green tea with pomegranate, and I haven't tasted it yet. So let's see what it's tasting like. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I don't think I stirred it up. I could taste it, but I can't taste it. It's good. I guess it's for people who don't put anything in their tea. It was good because I do have lemon in there, but I forgot to stir it and I don't have anything here to stir it. And so this is probably the first where I mixed it up, let it sit, and forgot to taste it before we start. And so I'm sure it's going to be good when this is over. Oh, listen, that's the funny thing about child. Listen, you can laugh at yourself because I'm like, okay, I know I put honey in here. And I feel like I want to put my finger in there and kind of like stir it up a little bit, see if I can get a little bit of taste of it up in here. I do have some tissue right here. Let me see if I can get a little something in here because I'm over here, child. I then forgot to stir it up. There you go. It just need a little finger action. There you go. There you listen. Okay, we back. We're back. I do have tissue here. I did wipe my finger off, child, just because I'm like, okay, let me just. So at any rate, we gotta improvise. So welcome. That's what we're having today is the green tea with pomegranate. I've got the honey in there and the lemon, and we finally got a little stir, and so it is officially good. Um, did you check out last week's tea around the conversation on God being first? If not, child, go watch it. Take some time to let it sit and linger, and really ask yourself, like, have I been putting all the things ahead of him? Right. And so I'm not going to reteach it and we're not going to have that conversation. But I do think that if you did not watch it, go back and watch it. I'm going to wait until midsection. I'll kind of do like a commercial and I'll talk about the inner circle. And I'm also going to talk about my 90-minute strategy session. And so, but in the meantime, I want to really jump right in to today's conversation simply because I'm sorry, I got lots of distractions today. Are you checking out the hair? This is another distraction. It's not a distraction, but I just wanted to child. She didn't been out since Saturday. And so, I do twist her and then I, zhuzh her back out and all that kind of stuff. And it is a little work, which is why I keep her, twisted and, kind of just contained because she can, be a lot. But I've been like, okay, it's nice outside. Let's give her a little breathing air. And it's almost time for a wash. And so I'll let her kind of, take it all in and then we're going to wash and we're going to get back twisted up. Okay. But with that being said, Let's have conversation today about this statement. You forgave them, but you didn't forgive yourself. You forgave them, but you didn't forgive yourself. Why do I want to have this conversation with you? Well, partially because I was having the conversation with myself. And I started to think about, and I've been reading a book called Worthy, a lot of things around self love, worthiness, around forgiveness, self care, really tapping back into you, right? Your zone of genius, your zone of worthiness, and really just kind of, as a coach, I also have to do this work as well as a consultant, a strategist. And so while I lead people and guide people through their own right process and in their own work, I also have to do my own work. And so I happened to be reading a journal assignment, and it really wasn't an assignment, it was just a journal prompt or a journal like writing in one of my old journals. And I happened to come across something that happened. I don't know, it was at least maybe 15 years ago. And I remember thinking about all of the emotions that came up when I was reading that specific, passage that I had written. And I just kind of silently said to myself, you know what? I forgive you, right? Because you did the best that you could at that particular time. And not only did you do the best that you could at that particular time, you also even if you didn't do your best, right? Like, because sometimes, child, it be us, right? We're the drama, we're the ones that cause all the things. And the reality is that sometimes you just kind of have to say, I did the best that I could, and I'm not going to carry that guilt or the shame of knowing that I probably could have made a better decision, but I didn't, right? And so I started to think about how many of the people in my community might be in that same place, right? And so something has happened, you've forgiven the person, but you haven't forgiven yourself, right? And it could be a separate situation where it was just you and you still haven't forgiven yourself and you're carrying around like a lot of guilt, you're carrying around, a lot of shame, embarrassment, humiliation, or whatever the case may be. And I feel like we need to have this conversation because we could be walking around and on the outside, we look successful. On the outside, we look put together. On the outside, we look like we got it together. But on the inside, there's still some work to be done. There's still some healing to be done. There's still some reflecting to be done. There's still some journaling to be done. There's still some forgiving that needs to be done. And so I want you to really take some time this week and think about if there are some situations where maybe you have forgiven the person or the people, but maybe you didn't forgive you. And I really want you to take some time to think about what that looks like, right? And just say, I forgive myself for, right? Not knowing any better. I forgive myself for, making decisions, when I really didn't know, I didn't know any better, right? Or I didn't really know what love was, right? And so I was trying to love somebody and I didn't know how to love myself, I forgive myself, for, making a decision that to some extent, like, it changed the trajectory of my life, but guess what? I got past it. And so what is it that you might need to forgive yourself? And maybe you've already gone through this, maybe through therapy, or maybe your coach, or maybe just, God has led you through, maybe even at church, wherever, right? And so there's some things that you kind of need to just forgive yourself for, right? And really just take some time to kind of sit with that, because sometimes in the moment, like, you know better, but you don't know better, like that you feel like that was the only decision you could have made at that time, or you feel like a specific thing wasn't your fault, right? And so you have to get to a point of forgiving yourself for getting yourself in a situation or allowing a situation to happen, or maybe you had no control over the situation, right? I forgive myself for thinking that that was my fault. It wasn't my fault, right? But if it was my fault, like, I made the best choice. I didn't make a and maybe it wasn't a wise choice. It was a really stupid choice. But guess what? I'm not going to let that hold me hostage. I'm not going to let that keep me from moving forward. I'm not going to allow it to be held over my head, even by me, because sometimes it's not that God hasn't forgiven you, you haven't forgiven you, right? It's not that you haven't even forgiven them, you haven't forgiven you, right? This is a personal conversation. This is a personal healing session. This is personal reflection around sometimes the very thing that's keeping you stuck is the mere fact that you know what happened and you feel responsible, whether you were or you weren't, but the situation is over, the situation is no longer, and there really isn't anything else that you can do. And to be honest, there may not have been anything you could have done at that particular time. And so it's really important when we talk about forgiveness, and I teach about forgiveness in my book, 30 days of, there we go, 30 days of thanks. And I I think there's one day where we talk about forgiveness, and there's the sayings where it says that forgiveness is more about you than the other person. And so, like, when we're talking about the issue of forgiving other people, but I really want to talk about the issue of forgiving yourself. Right. We don't talk a lot about that, right? We're like, oh, I forgave them, but did you forgive yourself? Or are you sitting with the regret of a decision you made, sitting with the shame of a situation that happened, sitting with the guilt of allowing something or feeling like you allowed something to happen when in essence maybe it wasn't in any of your control, right? I want us to have these real talk conversations because if I can't coach you one on one, which you should be booking, and I'm going to pause right here to put this in here. If you have not yet booked your 90-minute strategy session, and in those strategy sessions, we do talk. Sometimes people really want to say, hey, I can't really do the 3 month or the 6 month, but I really want to get some steps to move forward or some, a jump start. And so sometimes even in a situation like this is where you would book, the session where we could really sit down and talk about what that looks like. Maybe even me working with you to assist you in writing the I forgive myself statements, right? And then processing it, because sometimes once you write it, the emotions come and you're like, oh goodness. And so I want to encourage you, and I'm going to put this image up as well so that you can see this. I want to encourage you to book your 90-minute strategy session with me where we have an opportunity we can unpack some things that are causing you to be unstuck. We can unpack some things that are not allowing you or in the way of you taking the action that you need to be taking, or maybe around this area of procrastination. Maybe it's around the area of what we talked about in my Facebook group earlier this week around creating routines, right? That work for you. There were many women in my community who were like, I don't even know that I have a routine yet. Like, I probably need to think about what that looks like, whether it's a morning routine, an evening routine, whether it's an afternoon routine. Like, I might need to think about like what that looks like for me. And so we can talk about that as well and create something. But I want you to be intentional with, if you're not able to book a session, I want you to be able to do the work when I'm coming to you every Tuesday, right? And this is free. And so to take this relationship a little bit further, then yes, you have to make the investment. But this right here would be something that you're like, you know what, I really want to be in community with someone and work one-on-one with someone who can help me walk through this conversation, because I never thought about the process of what it would be like to be able to write myself a I forgive you letter, right? Or write myself some I forgive you statements, and what exactly it is that I really need to forgive myself with, right? And so maybe you weren't the best parent, maybe you weren't the best child, maybe you weren't the best wife, maybe you weren't the best husband, but whatever it is, taking the time to let me pull this out, taking the time to think about, right? Man, like, that probably wasn't the best situation, the best circumstance, or the best decision. But you know what? I forgive myself anyway. I wasn't the best friend. And I forgive myself for not showing up and being present. I forgive myself for, whatever it is, right? For not showing up for me, right? In what areas do you may need to forgive yourself for not showing up for you, for not being present for you, for not taking care of you, for not knowing how to properly love you. Like, I could go on, but I want you to have that conversation with yourself. I want you to write a letter, get a piece of paper, get your journal, and take some time and sit with it and just think about some of the things that you're like, man, like, is there anything that maybe I have not forgiven myself about, right? There's circumstances that have happened, right? And sometimes it's just like when you think about the decisions that you've made and you're like, child, what in the world was I thinking? I had a moment like that over the weekend. And outside of that, it's just like I forgive myself because child, I didn't know no better. You know what I mean? Like, you just, sometimes you don't know any better. Sometimes you're naive. Sometimes you in love. Sometimes you in stuck on stupid. Sometimes you just caught up with the wrong crowd. Sometimes you just weren't taught, right? You don't know any better because you weren't taught, right? You don't know, intimacy, or you don't know connection or communication. You don't know how to communicate because you grew up in a home that didn't communicate. And so you got to be able to forgive yourself in those spaces, because sometimes you might be taking on what was never yours to take on anyway. Right. And so you're holding on to something where you're forgiving people, but you're not forgiving yourself. So I think I'm done here, like, with this. I could go on, but I feel like this, if you need more support in this area, you need to book a session. You need to go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. I'll put this back up here. Book your Get Unstuck and Get Started 90-minute strategy session. You can go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. And again, there are a number of ways and a number of things that we can work on, with, whether it's accountability, whether it's consistency, whether it's deepening your relationship with the Lord, whether it is like your prayer time and your Bible study, setting up a schedule, monitoring your quiet time. I've had clients work with me specifically in that area, right? Around just what that looks like. I've had clients work with me around, you know, getting clear or really tapping into, why they're not fully showing up for themselves, right? I've had clients book me for, strategy, right? And so they have some ideas around some things. And so it's around strategy and ideation. And so I think it's important to know that there are multiple ways that you can use the strategy session, and working with me. It's $500. It's a 90-minute strategy session. You get access to the recording of the strategy session, in addition to some action plan points, talking points, and working points, action points, I should say, for the next 30, 60, 90 days, right? So depending upon what the goal is, right? But literally to be able to implement and walk it out for the next 30, 60, 90 days. And so a lot of times that's what you need. Like, you need somebody who can take some things out of your head and really kind of help you get clear on how you need to be moving. Sometimes it's not about the fact you know what to do, you're just not sure how to get started. And so that's really why we do the Get Unstuck and Get Started, because you're smart, you're intelligent, you're like, how to do this for other people, but sometimes you get stuck in your own head because you're thinking of all the things. Right. And so I love to partner with you. I love to be able to co-create with you. I love to be able to allow you to pick my brain and ask as many questions as you need, so that, if there's something that pops up, or, you're like, man, I never thought of that before. Thank you so much. Right. So, yeah, so that's that. The other thing that I will share, and I'm going to be sharing this every single week, simply because I want you to make sure that you are a part of the community. Make sure you text the word "hey" to 833-447-0492. That's 833-447-0492 to become a part of my text community. And I believe I have it set up where you can join the email list in addition to the text community when you do that, right? So with that being said, make sure that you are a part of our TextFam and the email community, because as I've been saying, social media ain't loyal, and at any point in time it could shut down. And so I want to make sure that, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or anywhere else that you might find me on, if by some chance it's gone, I still want us to be able to stay connected. I still want you to know what we have coming up. And there are some things coming up. I am doing another sit, soak, and seek. And so if you remember, that's my worship experience. I'm looking to do another one of those in May. I'm also looking to bring back 21 days of prayer. It's not going to be until July, but we're doing a reset, 21 days of prayer reset. And then also I'm thinking about opening up registration, early bird registration early for my live event coming up in December, sometime this month. I'm just not sure when. And maybe not this month, but this quarter. And so if you have been looking to register, and you missed pre-sale, you want to get in for early bird registration. And also because there are limited spots left, like the space that we are in only holds a limited number of spots. And I think we might only have like 25 to 30 spots left. And I've already claimed that they're going to be sold out. VIP is already sold out. And so if you want to get in the room, you're going to want to make sure you're on my text list as well as on my email list, because they will get first dibs in addition to being a part of my paid communities, my incubator, and my inner circle. So with that being said, take some time this week. And I know I've been kind of hitting you a little hard, but that is my role and my responsibility in this season. I do not want to leave you wounded on the side of the street, or walking wounded, when to some extent you may not even know, right? You may not even know what's really causing you to not feel like you're moving at the pace that you need to be moving at. And it could just be because you've forgiven all the people and you feel like you've asked the Lord to forgive you, right? But you haven't forgiven you. And so I want you to really explore. And if this isn't you, that's okay. Share it with somebody who it might be for, right? Because every message that I share, I recognize that it is not for everyone, but I do know, or those who are watching, but I do know it's for someone. And so if you know someone who needs access to today's conversation around you forgave them, but you didn't forgive you, I want you to send this to them, right? Make sure you take some time, get your journal out, and really explore what you need to forgive. Forgive yourself again, for not knowing any better. Forgive yourself for carrying around shame and guilt for something that you didn't do. Forgive yourself for carrying around shame and guilt, humiliation, and all of that for what you did do, right? It's done. It's over. Like there, you can't undo it, right? And here's the other part. If the people have forgiven you, then you got to forgive you, right? And here's the other part. Even if the people haven't forgiven you, you got to forgive you, because that's between you and God, and them and God, right? And so when people are not forgiving, they're holding their own blessing up, which is again why we stress the whole point of forgiving people, because it really is not about them, it's about us. But you also, if you're not forgiving you, it's still about you. It's still about you. And so I really want you to, if there's anything that you need to release that maybe you hadn't even thought about, right? It's just like, I knew I could have done something different and I didn't. I forgive myself for that, right? I was embarrassed. I forgive myself for that. Whatever it is, forgive yourself for it. Give yourself the moments you need. Child, cry it out if you need to. Right? Boo-hoo it out if you need to. Scream it out if you need to. Go kickbox it out if you need to, right? Release those emotions, right? Take some deep breaths. Sit with yourself. Let God kind of sit with you as well. Let Holy Spirit be with you during that time. But take some time to identify, if this is you specifically, where you need to not only forgive yourself, but then also release it. So I hope that this was good for you. The honey done kicked in. And I hope that you will do the work. And I know sometimes the work is hard. I know sometimes we get caught up in all the things that are happening around us, which is why we get the short end of the stick, right? We get the short end of the stick because we're tending to everything but us. And so my assignment has always been to help you to get out of your own way so that you can show up for others in the same way that you show up for yourself, in the same way that you show up for others. You're real good with showing up for everybody else. I want you to be good at doing that for yourself, right? making yourself a priority, and not just in the things that feel good, but the things that also don't feel good, because those are the things that also bring about healing and restoration and clarity and confidence, and you fully walking out your worthiness, right? And who God has created you to be, right? Not just what he's created you to do, but excuse me, who he has created you to be. So make sure that, again, you are sharing this. I'm going to start from the back, sharing this with 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take the link, text it to a couple of people, share it in your stories, share it on social media. Let folks know about Tuesday Tea with D. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you comment below. Is there anything that you need to identify that you need to, I forgive yourself for? And if so, and it may be personal, so you don't necessarily have to tell me what it is, but I love for you to say, I'm going to do this in the comments below. I read the comments. I may not always get back to them to comment like right then and there, but I do come back to comment. I always read them because I see the notifications pop up. But if you know that this is something that you need to consider and that you know you need to do, just say, listen, this is something that I need to do, right? You don't have to tell me what it is. You don't tell me who you need to, obviously we're talking about you forgiving you, but what you need to forgive you about. But I do want to know, let me know in the comments if you know that, like, you know what, it's a couple things that I need to address and I really need to forgive myself for, and I need to release it so I can move forward. Let me know. Right. So not only like, comment, but then last thing is I want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, so that you can get Tuesday Tea with D every Tuesday. And when we go live, so like when we do 21 days of prayer, we go live on YouTube. If there's any other things that I do that maybe they're pre-recorded or live and we do them and I put them on YouTube, you get notifications. So make sure you hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever I share a video or whenever I go live. And then I think that might be it. Make sure you book your strategy session, your 90-minute strategy session. I'm going to put this back up again. Go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. I have a select number of those, limited number of those, just because of the work that I'm doing with my inner circle, the work that I'm doing with my incubator. Those are my paid communities. And then for my incubator, I have elite members who also get coaching calls, private coaching calls with me. And so I have to be mindful of my time because I already have clients who I'm kind of working with, communities that I'm teaching and coaching. And so, but I want to be able to create space for this because I do know that there are a number of you who may not be able to do some of the other things, but I know you can do this, right? So, so make sure you book your call. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure that you are, you're texting, hey, let me put this up again as well. Make sure you're texting hey to 833-447-0492, 833-447-0492 to get on the text community, as well as possibly the email community so that we can stay connected. And with that being said, I will see you next time on Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D.